Beautiful Bets is back for episode 2. I am not British. I wish I had a British accent, but I have my man Eric Wynalda here, also not British,
Nope.
but he knows a lot about soccer, football, as some people call it,
Yeah.
and that's all that matters here. Eric, welcome back.
Right. It's good to be back. We had a good week last week. Some fascinating games. It's nice to get them right. When you get them wrong, you second guess yourself. So my point would be this week with the games, the slate that we have in front of us, you can either get it right or really wrong. But I think the advice that we're going to give today might point you in the right direction, because there's some stuff that you might not know that will weigh into your decision making.
Yeah, and one of the bad things about when you lose is that you lose money, and we don't like to do that.
Well, this week we won. It was a good. I mean, people that listen, they came out on the good side. So we're doing all right so far.
They cashed in. So Andrew Beasley will be back next week. He's usually the man in charge here, along with our man Eric Wynalda. But I am in here as the substitute teacher for the week, TommyFreezePops. And let's kick things off with Chelsea. Christian Pulisic's a guy we talked about last week, and Thierry Henry, who is one of the biggest names in soccer, had some words for Pulisic this past week. He said, at one point, you're going to have to bring something to the table. How many managers are not going to trust you? It's going to have to be you at one point, so find a way. What do you think about those words that Henry had to say about Pulisic? And is it time to move on? And then generally, let's talk about Chelsea's match this weekend in the EPL.
Yeah, Chelsea actually gets Wolves, which is a pretty good game. As we all know, in the game against AC Milan, Christian Pulisic sat that one out completely, which has a lot of people second-guessing where he actually stands in Graham Potter, the new manager, brand new manager's mind. They get the victory 3-0 against AC Milan, which, let me remind everybody, that was a depleted side for AC Milan. They literally had guys with numbers on their shirt, 83, 75, and 90 something. That means the academy boys are trying to help you get through a game. Everybody's had a lot of tension on this because Sergiño Dest played in this game for AC Milan, and Pulisic didn't. Now, Thierry Henry is also dealing with something else. I'm going to take a shot at you, Thierry. You're watching Holland, and you are an egomaniac, and you're saying to yourself, man, I'm so jealous that everybody's talking about this guy, Erling Haaland. And guess what? Erling Haaland, when he scores, he goes and celebrates with his teammates. He doesn't run to the crowd and say, hey, look at me, look at me. So I know where Thierry Henry is coming from, and I've worked in television, and sometimes you say things you regret. I think he'll regret that. It isn't really on Christian Pulisic as much as people are suggesting. It's been a difficult set of circumstances with Thomas Tuchel, his former manager, all the way back to Dortmund. Those two never got along. So sometimes he fell out of favor. But the opening matches that we've seen with Graham Potter, he's basically gone English. No matter how bad Sterling plays, he's playing. And when it's time to make a sub, he's putting in Gallagher instead of Pulisic. So that has people asking a lot of questions. He didn't play in that game against Japan because he was holding on to a knock. We don't know how bad that knock is. He did play in the second feature for the U.S., but he has yet to really show himself. Keep in mind, though, he came in as a late sub and ended up getting a victory for Mr. Graham Potter. So he hasn't forgotten that. Where we are getting this wrong as a whole is everybody is suggesting that he doesn't like him, and this is the third manager. No, it's a schedule where Chelsea has to figure this out. They have game after game after game, and when the games come fast and furious, you have to sit people out, and you have to manage it. I think that everyone's overreacting to this. Let's keep in mind, Kai Havertz also sat this one out. He was a late sub, but this is the guy that had the game-winning goal in the Champions League final. So relax, everybody. This is not something to freak out about.
So one of the teams that is rumored to be taking a run at Pulisic at some point here is Newcastle.
Yes.
And Newcastle has Brentford this weekend in the Prem. So what do we got here, Eric? You got any insight here for this match between Newcastle and Brentford?
Well, first of all, the interest in Christian Pulisic is very real. It's also coming from Leeds as well. Everybody knows Jesse Marsch is the manager there, and there's already two Americans who are consistent starters for Leeds. I like this Newcastle idea. I really do. With their new insertion of money, There's been a lot of speculation that they're going to splash a lot of cash when it comes to January, right after the World Cup. And Christian Pulisic, if he can have a decent World Cup, is going to have plenty of interest from everywhere. And I do think he should move. I still am in that boat that I think that he should get out of Chelsea. But at the end of the day, Newcastle will be real because they've got more money than everybody. So if this becomes a bidding war, I expect him to be playing at St. James Park. But now, that game, Newcastle against Brentford, look, if you look at the schedule, what's looming for Newcastle, they've got Chelsea, Common City, and Arsenal, and Tottenham. So you get your points while you can. I've got Newcastle winning this game handily. Brentford has been problematic, places like Crystal Palace and even Man City. But I've got Newcastle understanding the circumstances, taking advantage of this little break, if you can call it that, and just getting it done. If this could go, they don't usually get more than 3, but this might be the week to do it. I got 3-1 in favor of Newcastle.
I had Brentwood on the mind, not Brentford. Should have said Brentford. Was thinking about O.J. Simpson.
They're new. They've got a crazy Danish manager, and I love this guy. But and they've had some very interesting results. Right out of the gates, they beat Manchester United when they kicked them when they were down to a certain extent. But things are leveling off, and they'll find their way into that 12-13 spot eventually.
So let's talk about a dominant team in the EPL here. That's Man City. They have Southampton this weekend. Man City is just an absolute wagon. Like, how do you bet on this team? How do you make money on Man City right now?
Well, I mean, last week I had them 6-1 winners in the Manchester derby. People called me crazy. I said there will be goals in this game. There was the assumption that Manchester United would come out and make it a very difficult game for Erling Haaland, for De Bruyne, for Bernardo Silva, and Foden, and that was not the case. They ended up, 6-3 was the final. Martial got 2 late goals. Here's the bad news for Southampton. Southampton has been on the wrong end of 9-goal games in the past, and their manager Ralph Hasenhüttl, who came from Germany, like that name Hasenhüttl. It's one of the best. It sounds like a character out of a
That's a chef's kiss. Beautiful name.
It's something. It's either that or it's an elf in a Christmas movie. But Hasenhüttl is a guy that is unafraid. He will go for it. He doesn't care. If he's down 3-0, he'll say, "So what? Let's get a goal. I'm going to try and save face here." That's always been his downfall. And the fact that he's still in a job surprises a lot of people. Usually you don't survive a game where you lose by 9. But I expect more out of that from him. And if you've already survived it twice, why not go it again? Now, here's the bad news. Haaland sat out. He scored 2 goals in the European fixture and then said, all right, against Copenhagen, and then basically said, I'm out at halftime. De Bruyne didn't play at all. They're rested. They're ready. And I'm going to be crazy enough to say that we might see our 4th hat trick out of Haaland. And that would be absolutely crazy. I mean, it took Michael Owen 47 games to get his the first 3 hat tricks. This guy did it in 8 games. It's from out of this world. And even Pep Guardiola is saying, I've never seen anything like it. You have a bunch of artists around him who can paint a picture and can hit a stop sign from 30 yards. They don't have to hit a stop sign anymore. They don't. This guy's massive. You just got to put it in the general vicinity, and it's going to find its way on goal. So I've got him for 3 more, believe it or not. I've got him scoring 5, and the final score 5-1 in favor of Man City.
Crazy. I love it. This is why Eric Wynalda is on this podcast. By the way, if you guys love what we do here at Vegas Insider, you got to check out the brand new Vegas Insider app. We've got up-to-date, easy-to-navigate odds for every major sport. We have all our latest shows, best bet videos and podcasts, props, trends, futures, news, all on the free Vegas Insider app. Download the Vegas Insider app right now on Apple and Android. Bet better with the Vegas Insider app. All right, so let's dig in here on maybe the game of the weekend in the EPL, and that's Arsenal versus Liverpool. Liverpool, a team coming into the season that we all thought was going to be in that top 2-3 conversation. Arsenal kind of coming out of nowhere and having a fantastic 2022 in the fall side here. So what are we looking at Saturday or Sunday. I'm
Sunday.
blanking on what day. Okay, so Sunday these guys are playing. What are we looking at here with Liverpool taking on Arsenal?
This is probably the most that I'm going to go out on a limb, maybe all year. And a lot of people might call me crazy for this prediction. But here's why I'm going to say that Liverpool wins this game 3-1 at the Emirates, which and they haven't lost at home in forever. So the odds are definitely in your favor if you believe what I'm about to say. Now, the problem is they have to play today, and how they crawl out of this game against Bodo Glimt. This is a team that beat Roma last year. They beat Jose Mourinho's Roma. They just got beat in league play by Molde, but then they turn around and they tie PSV and Eindhoven. And they beat Zurich. Now, given Zurich's in last place, but they were able to get 2 goals past them, or they're in last place in the Swiss league. But what people are not understanding is that, one, Liverpool gets the benefit of 1 extra day's rest. 2, this team is going to take Bodo Glimt is going to take a lot to beat. It's a lot to break them down. We don't know what kind of condition Arsenal will be in, and this is certainly something that Mikel Arteta's got to manage. But that's the best Liverpool has looked in their victory over Rangers. They were able to rest some guys. Thiago is back. This is no longer Milner and Elliott running that midfield. It's Henderson, who's their captain, and Thiago, who looked the part. Subbed out in the 80th minute, but that tells me we're resting you. Thanks for putting a good performance together, but we need you in a couple days. Firmino will feature big. This is my prop bet. I think Firmino ends up scoring in this game, even though he did not start, and Nunez did against Rangers. I feel like Arsenal's going to come limping into this one, and they put way too much into it. And finally, we're going to see the real Liverpool. Even though this week, Jurgen Klopp and Nunez actually said, I don't understand a word that my coach is saying. I have no idea without the translators. And I started thinking about this because the Scouser accent is bad enough in English. I don't even understand it. What if the Spanish translators have a Scouser accent? He won't even understand the Spanish in this deal. So
that's like 3 levels of language there.
It's hard to acclimate already. But look, they still have Luis Diaz. They still have Mo Salah, who looks the part. We finally saw some goals out of some people that we haven't in a while. And Van Dijk looks like he's ready to play. It took him 4 or 5 games to get back in a rhythm. But that defense is solid. It's going to be a little bit too much for Arsenal to break down. They've been great this year. I don't want people to take this like, oh, you don't like Arsenal. I love Arsenal right now. I love everything that I've seen. But this will be their first slip-up. 3-1 Liverpool.
Let's take a look at Germany here. Der Klassiker, one of the biggest games in the sport every single time Bayern takes on Dortmund here. So, Wynalda, you're close to the Bundesliga. You've had some experience with this game. So talk us through what we're looking at here in Der Klassiker this weekend.
It's the only one I got wrong, Tommy. It's the only one I didn't think that was going to go right yesterday, and that's Sevilla and Dortmund. I wasn't happy with Dortmund. I didn't feel that they were going to get a great result in Sevilla, but they came out. And came out of this one with a 4-1 victory. And this is where I kind of got slapped in the face, and I apologize to guys like Brandt, because they're better players than you think sometimes. And we forget that. We look at Marco Reus, we look at the fact that Gio Reyna's out, but it provided opportunity for other players. Now, the reason why that Bayern is actually going to win this game, even though it's in Dortmund, is it's just the statement game. Julian Nagelsmann has been put for the first time under immense pressure. His last league game to come out of the gates and just destroy 4-0. And then in the Champions League, another big victory with Gnabry, Sané, and Mane all scoring. They've had they have an extra day's rest again, and they had the early game on the Tuesday. So I believe at the end of the day, if you're looking at this from both lenses, as much of attention it's going to get, it's going to be too much. Bayern will take this one 2-1. It'll be late. It'll be very late. I believe Bayern will steal this thing late because they have too many horses. But Goretzka is back. Kimmich is looking the part. everyone said, well, how are they going to do this without Lewandowski? But when you got Mane and Sané, you're going to get goals, and you're going to get them on the counter. Once Dortmund exposes himself, they're going to concede. It will be a busy game. It will be a fantastic Klassiker, but Bayern takes it, and the world will be back to what we expect. Bayern on top, Union Berlin, and everybody else, including Dortmund, chasing.
So that was probably Dortmund's manager texting you right now to
Yeah,
say, why are you picking against us here?
Come on, man. Give me a break. Yeah, I hear you.
I had to say it. Come on.
Yeah, of course.
So we got the Bundesliga action outside of Der Klassiker this weekend. Give me your long shot pick for the weekend. The one underdog or the one surprise we're going to have coming out of Germany here.
So maybe this is my heart talking, so take that in consideration. I did play for VfL Bochum. VfL Bochum is without a victory this year, okay? They got 1 point. That's all. Frankfurt is spinning out of the European window a little bit beat up. Frankfurt has been very good, but also up and down. If Bochum is ever going to win, this would be it. They keep also in mind that they won this fixture last year 2-0 against also a very good Frankfurt side. But I think if you're really going to go out on a limb, the numbers, it's got to be minus something horrible. But I believe that Bochum is finally in a space. I played there. I know the mentality of the people. The energy will take them through. It's going to be low. It'll be a 1-0. And it might even be an own goal. Let's get crazy here. But VfL Bochum beats Frankfurt 1-0.
I like it. I like a long shot pick. I like
long shots are
plus
fun.
Money. So I'll go ahead and tell you on that. Why not? I know you're a little biased because you played there,
right?
But let's go ahead and grab the plus money here. All right, let's do the handicapper heat check for today. It's presented by VegasInsider.com, your home for the best expert picks in the business since 1997. Today we recognize Scott Pritchard, who is on fire in the NFL and MLB. Scott won 7 straight NFL picks, extending his streak to 16-4 in his last 20. And in the MLB, he's hit 4 straight and is on an 11-2 run. Visit Vegas Insider's expert picks page to take advantage of Scott's hot streak or click on his promo on the Vegas Insider homepage. That's your handicapper heat check. Stay hot, bettors. All right, so let's dig into some bigger stories here across the board. What should Brenden, Aaronson, and Tyler Adams be targeting here in the World Cup in terms of goal contributions and assists?
Well, I mean, this has been a big conversation for multiple players about systems of play, and why do guys not really play as well as they do for the national team for their clubs, and then vice versa. These guys are looking terrific when they play in this Leeds outfit, and that's Jesse Marsch. That's also an American. I think they truly benefit from the relationship that both managers have with each other, more so than anything else, because that understanding is there of how they're going to play. I think they're both very content to stay at Leeds. It's on most occasions when you're playing for a team like Leeds, you say, "Oh, going into a World Cup, what if I catch somebody's eye and I can go to Italy or go to Spain or go to a bigger club and more money?" I don't think that's the case with these two. I think that they are going to be contributors. I think they have the benefit of not playing for something bigger. This is not that to say that this is as big as it's ever going to get for Brenden, Aaronson and Tyler Adams, but they're happy where they are. There's something to be said for that. They're comfortable where they are. They're playing well. Go into the World Cup, play in the World Cup, give us all you got, and you know what your destination is once the tournament's over. You're going home. And that feeling of comfort will hopefully equate to better play out of those two.
So you mentioned the World Cup, and I got this question from a few people around the Vegas Insider office, so I'll pitch it to you. You know a thing or two about Team USA. Is Gregg Berhalter the right guy to lead the U.S. moving forward?
All right, so there goes my media lunch pass. I guess they can keep their sandwich. They're not
hot seat time, man.
That's okay. No, he is not. I think he has proven in multiple ways, that he was up for the task of managing this team. I mean, you could see winning the Nations Cup and also winning the Gold Cup in a pretty decent fashion. I'll go back to certain moments where the Weston McKennie goal and then the 60-yard sprint to go hug your manager. Those are moments where he'll be able to really say, this was my team. But he has gotten way too pragmatic. It's all about numbers and metrics. These guys have kind of lost their flow of how to play. I used this analogy last week when the national team was playing because people are really struggling to understand why our guys aren't playing well. And I said, the national team managerial job is not to teach. It's not. It has nothing to do with that. It's a selection process of finding our best players and getting results out of the best players that we have. What he's trying to do is teach them his system and to own it and force them to be what he needs them or wants them to be. That doesn't work at the national team level. So when I answer this question, no, he's not going to be the right guy going forward. He's going to be the manager through this World Cup. If he gets out of the group, which is still a hell of a task because Iran is a lot better than people think. They got this guy Taremi who's playing for Porto, who's scoring for fun, and no one's even talking about it. So it's going to be hard for us to get out. But if he does get out, that's the success story. He won't get any further than the quarterfinals, but he's got an MLS job waiting for him. So let's not worry about him. But this whole idea of being a Hollywood director and giving kids or the actors the script and saying follow the script or else, that doesn't work in soccer.
How important do you feel Wesley McKennie will be to Team USA's hopes of having a good World Cup campaign? There's been some concerns and some criticisms of his ball control, pass completion, pass progression. What do you think about McKennie here?
Lower 14 percentile, actually, in that. So if you started getting all married to the metrics, and you start saying this is dictating whether he's a good player or not, and the performances don't add up on paper, Allegri, his manager, has kind of figured that out. He's not going to be the best passer of the ball. He is going to be a ball winner. And what that means is you have more talent in front of you, and that will certainly be the case with guys like Gio Reyna and Pulisic and Aaronson in front of him, and even Yunus Musa. His job is to win the ball and give it to people, right? His job is to win headers and get the ball going the other direction, not towards zone. So he loses out on a lot of those duels, if you will, that he wins in the air. He'll win the ball, and it'll go to the opposition. They count that as a bad pass. That's not really one of those things that you can marry yourself to the metrics. So I think that he understands his role. He is in one of the best places to learn how to defend in Juventus. The Italians will teach you how to do that, and they'll make you angry, and they'll make you fight, and you go into hard on tackles. That's why I criticized him when he didn't go in hard on a tackle against Japan. But when we get into a national team setup, his role is understood. He knows what he has to do. He's going to be phenomenal going forward on set pieces. He'll be fine. There's been a lot of speculation, but that's just a bunch of people that possibly are trying to look for a reason to get people to talk about why he shouldn't be on the team. He will be on the field. He'll be right next to Tyler Adams. I guarantee that if they're fit in the first game against Wales on the 21st of November.
Are there any U.S. youngsters that you believe clubs in Europe should be keeping an eye on ahead of the World Cup?
Well, in this World Cup, it's not about youngsters. There's no such thing as young players or old players, just good players and bad players. That's what I always say. But I think that they're, to that point about Adams and Aaronson, I don't think that they would normally be guys that you'd put on that radar because they have this opportunity to prove themselves and go to a better destination. A lot of the guys in this team that are going to play are already pretty happy where they are. And so when you start evaluating, which guys could make a move, if you will, the only one that really comes to mind, and he's 29, so forget the young part, is Zimmerman. Walker Zimmerman, it could prove to be a stalwart in this U.S. setup. And you spinning out of that World Cup where you have a ton of EPL teams looking at a guy like Tim Ream, who's done really well at Fulham, and saying, well, what about that guy? We got 2 injuries, and he might be on the back end of what we would call a panic buy, but it's going to make him a rich man. So that would be one that I would look at. The other issue might be if Turner, our goalkeeper, puts in some good performances, as I don't think Zach Steffen will play, and he's the backup at Arsenal. Maybe he makes a move. Maybe it's a loan move. But outside of that, the greatest thing about the U.S. team is everybody's fairly content where they are right now. Um, this Jordan Pefok situation with him scoring goals at Union Berlin and not getting called in, that's going to dictate the headlines if he doesn't make it. And of course, the other one, Haji, if he can get into the team in the first place, he's playing in Turkey right now, but still is a guy that you might want to keep your eye on. But it's not about young, it's not about old, it's about good or bad or potential. So
Either you got the juice or you don't. That's how it
very
works.
simple stuff.
So let's take a look here at Falarin, who is a striker for Arsenal. And there's been talk that he can opt for the U.S. men's national team before the World Cup. And with goals being an issue for Team USA, do you think this is something you'd want to see?
Well, no, not right now. It's Bellingham, right? So his deal is too late. It's kind of unfortunate. We lived this before a long time ago. The current technical director for U.S. Soccer is a guy named Ernie Stewart. He had Dutch heritage. He was playing for Willem II. And we knew that we could get him. And because of the paperwork process, we found out a couple of months before the World Cup that Ernie Stewart could be on the World Cup team in 1990. Certainly, he would have helped us. We would have been a much better team if he would have had his services. But this will come down to chemistry. This will come down to a process that will be deemed unfair to the guys that have been really working at it for a long, long time. They know the team. They know the system. And the fact that Berhalter is teaching a system, the last thing you want is a new student. So I think he misses out on this run, but certainly as we move towards 2026, he's got a long runway there to figure out whether he can be a part of this group.
So let's talk about Gio Reyna, who's out for 10 days with a muscle strain he picked up on international duty. Can Dortmund and Team USA rely on his fitness with a busy club schedule looming as well as the World Cup?
No, that's no. Is the answer. It's a terrible situation. I lived this as a player. I mean, the hardest part is when you go into national team duty. Now these clubs know when they select their players, they go for the best players in the world. And Gio Reyna is certainly one of the best players on the United States national team. So they knew going in that he was going to have national team duty. Problem is when you go into national team duty and you come home limping, and you're the first person, you don't go to see the team or the coach, you go to see the trainer and say, oh my God, it happened again. That has been the case with this guy. He comes in. We all saw this it was a couple months ago now with the 1 minute into the game, he pulls a muscle. And this is spilling out of a long trip and the back and forth. With the way the schedule looks, they got 12 more games between now and the start or when they let everybody go on November 9th or 10th. He's going to have, from the U.S.'s perspective, he's got to play. He's got to get games. From Dortmund's perspective, hey, we need you. We need you now. We can't have you thinking about the World Cup, because if you start thinking about the World Cup, then you're gonna start thinking about not getting hurt. And everybody knows when you start trying not to get hurt, that's when it happens. So it's a really lousy situation for Gio. I understand that the treatment has gone really well, and he will factor in some games next week. He's missing out on the Klassiker, which has got to weigh on him. At the same time, I got to be honest, as a player, as much as you want to play in that deal, if you're coming off an injury and somebody takes all of the pressure off of you and says, don't worry about it, don't even think about it, I know you want to play, you're not going to. That way his head can be clear and he can focus on whatever plan they've got him on, and that will entail next week, not this week. So it's a wait and watch, and then let's hope, let's pray. He's certainly, when he's on, is one of our better players. He's yet to score this year for his club, and that's concerning. But we've got a couple of guys in that boat, Christian Pulisic as well, that, you know what, if they're playing games and they're staying healthy, and by the time we get to Wales in November and they're ready to go, from that perspective, you're happy as you can be. The last part of it, we just talked about this, is maybe they're sick of the injuries, and maybe if they can unload him, and if he does well, he does fall into that young player category that could possibly move, because as happy as he might seem, that doesn't mean Dortmund's happy with him.
Very interesting stuff there, man. And before we wrap up, let's talk about your best bet for the weekend here. So you gave us some plays in the EPL. You gave us a long shot in Bundesliga. You made a pick for Der Klassiker. So what are you the most confident in here? What are we rolling with here? What should I 100% bet on from the information you gave me today?
Chelsea rolls. Chelsea is I know, man. I know that this game against Milan was a depleted side. But let's put it this way. Graham Potter used to be the manager of Brighton. Last time Brighton played against Wolves, which is the same guys, by the way. Nothing has changed. It's only been a couple of weeks, to be honest. He was able to figure that one out. He knows the blueprint. He beat him 3-0 at Brighton. I do think that Pulisic features in this game, and I do think he scores or assists. So I believe that this is a game where there will be a lot of traction because of Pulisic's inclusion. I think Kyle Havertz will play. I think Pulisic will play. He'll be in favor over Gallagher in this particular one, because Sterling did not play well. And I think Graham he's got to manage this thing. He's got to figure out a way to get the most out of everybody. So when they showed up to training this morning, basically Graham Potter was, "How you doing, Christian? You all right? Sorry to get in there, but hey, let's go." I think Chelsea explodes again. As difficult to break down Wolves has been, Graham Potter's the only guy that's gotten 3 past him. So this is a game where I think, well, that's not necessarily true. There was a 3-3 in there somewhere, but that was a different game. This one will go in Chelsea's favor. They'll get 3, and they get the shutout.
There we go. So maybe a Pulisic prop play here for you.
That's what I'm going with. I'm going with
out here betting.
Prop play on Pulisic, definitely featuring in 1 or 2 of the goals, and I think it's a shutout for sure.
All right, so there you guys go. Beautiful bets. In and out of here in 30 minutes. That's the way we like it. Nice and tidy. Next week, Andrew Beasley will be back. I will be out of my substitute teacher chair here, and we'll get 2 soccer brainiacs talking football here on the pod. So, Eric, final thoughts here as we wrap up beautiful bets for the week.
So this is the time where when you're watching games, what you need to understand is that on most occasions there'll be more goals, especially with the teams that are playing in the European features. So take a look at that, and 1 day's rest, 24 hours, folks, is a lot of time to a soccer player. And when you have a quick turnaround, when you get a Thursday, Sunday, like Arsenal, that is going to factor into what the way these games play out. Tired legs means a lot of fouls, possible red cards, and a lot of goals.
There you go, guys. Write it down, keep it in mind, and place your bets accordingly. That's going to do it for Beautiful Bets. I'm TommyFreezePops. That's Eric Wynalda. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Got it.